Hey, good evening, everybody out there in Unlock the Middle. And Chris Darcheski, principal at Dudley Middle School, co-creator, co-host, and tri-host, I guess, of Unlock the Middle's Inside the Red Zone, Navigating Leadership, where we dive into some very important topics with leaders and educators from around the world tonight. It's very exciting to be here. Please check us out on our social media platforms. Double check all those past episodes. It's a great professional development experience, and we are going to have a fantastic conversation tonight. Let's go ahead to my right side, Dean Packard. How are you doing tonight, my friend?
Chris, I'm doing really well. I hope you're doing well also. I'm glad. It's nice to see everybody here Thursday night. Little opportunity to connect across the nation and getting out of North America and heading to a whole nother continent, which I love, which is great for us. So we're excited to talk to you, Mel, and everybody here on the call tonight. So again, Thursday nights are about getting better together. So all good stuff here. Josh, where are you, brother? Are you down there?
Good to go, Josh Sawad here, proud principal of Memorial Pathway Academy in Garland ISD, Garland, USA. Not only am I surrounded with the 50 United States, but now we got the Western Hemisphere going on. Right here, look, right there, right across that screen. We got Colombia in the house. We've got Canada in the house. We've got all the Western Hemisphere. And Mel's about to just start laughing up a storm, and I love it. But you know what? We're going to be doing some great stuff today because you know what? It doesn't matter where you are. Normally we say the 50 United States, but you know what? It's education. But education for the future of the country, whether it be Canada, whether it be Colombia, whether it be the United States. It's about us sharpening our tools to make sure that we're prepared and being the better version of ourselves as we start off the 22-23 school year. What do you think about that, Dean?
I think that's fantastic. Why don't we do this? Why don't we start with Mel? Mel, we're going to go around the horn here. I want you to say a little bit about yourself, where you're from, what you do. We know you stalk us a little bit on the side in the chat and always put some perspective in, so we appreciate that. But tell us a little bit about what you do and what you're all about.
Okay, so hi everyone. So if you haven't ever seen me, I'm usually stalking, these guys in the YouTube live chat, basically. But yeah, my name's Mel or Melissa. I'm Australian. Or half Malaysian, whatever. And yeah, I used to teach English and maths back in Australia quite a long time ago. And then I moved to Taiwan and I was teaching there for 5 years. And now I'm in Colombia and I've been here for 3 years at the international school. So it's very different, but yeah, I'm enjoying it. I guess it's a different experience and looking forward to see what the future holds also. But yeah, thanks for having me on here.
Our pleasure. That's great stuff. Tim, you've been back before. Let's have a little snapshot of you once again, please.
Little update. Yeah, so I'm a teacher in British Columbia, Canada, on the west coast of Canada, and I'm a science teacher. I teach astronomy, I teach chemistry, junior science, whatever they throw at me. Unlike Mel, I've been in one place in my life. I've been other places, but I've only ever taught in one school. Walnut Grove Secondary School for, oh my gosh, it's nudging 30 years I've been at that school. So I appreciate Mel's well-traveled experience, something I probably should have done.
Good
Too
stuff.
Late now.
No, listen, I think that's great. Great perspective. Mel, look at that. We're throwing it right back at you for a second there. Mr. Cortez, welcome to the forum. Talk to us about yourself.
Thanks for having me, Dean. I'm Mr. Cortez. I am coming into my 5th year of teaching. I did teach in Phoenix, Arizona for a year, and I taught in El Paso for a year, and now I've been out here in Dallas, Texas, in little old Pleasant Grove, in Title I school at School for the Talented and Gifted in Pleasant Grove. It just rolls right off the tongue. We call it STAG and PG for short, and I teach in a predominantly Hispanic school, so I can relate to all of my students.
Nice. Well, welcome aboard. Welcome here to the platform tonight. Chris, why don't you start us off with our questions?
Yeah, so we're entering in after an unprecedented period, to the 22-23 school year. But we'll talk about planning in a little bit for what we're about to engage in. But what's the number one lesson that you learned in your role from the COVID pandemic? As a leader and as an educator. Let's kick it down to Tim.
Okay. I think the number one thing I learned from COVID was that education actually can be innovative. Our hand was forced. We had to improvise and get online and figure out new ways to interact with kids and assess kids. And the improvisation, I think, is something that we just can't lose. Because if there's one thing that I've always said about school, probably across the globe, is we're stuck in the past. And every other industry in the world is moving at light speed, especially now, except schools. But we've just proven to ourselves that we can move at light speed. We can adjust on the fly. And we can't lose that now. We got to hold on to that and keep pushing. So even things like I teach astronomy. Well, why is it that only kids who go to my school can take astronomy? Well, now we've figured out that that you could be anywhere in the world and study astronomy. I could distribute my lessons globally through the online platform. So that's just one example of probably many that lessons I've learned, and I'm pretty excited that I just hope that everybody realizes what we've been able to accomplish in a very, very short time, and I hope we can hang on to some of that fire.
Tim, I love the perspective. I think it's very important to be reminded that, education in general, humans in general, can be resilient. And when challenged, we can definitely rise up and accomplish great things. Sometimes we have to be forced into that change. And this was certainly a force, without a doubt. Hey, Mel, what's your number one lesson?
So I think what Tim said basically summarizes, I think, for a lot of people, like that whole idea of being very flexible and adaptable and being open to new things, like not being shy of like trying different things. Because we were really pushed into a situation that we weren't expecting, and we just had to go way out of our comfort zone, or really expand our comfort zone to something else, and really, I don't know, push ourselves to another area. But like for me, it was really about like the technology, right? About communication, maintaining like really clear communication with the students, with the parents. I hadn't really done, I don't know, previously I didn't really have that as a big focus, I guess. I mean, obviously communication was important, but that sort of brought it to like a different light, like a new light, basically. But yeah, for me, maybe communication.
Can I jump on something right there?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I love that perspective. I never have heard it put that way. Normally the expression is we've got to get out of our comfort zone, implying that when we do, we're no longer comfortable. But rather, Mal says, no, let's just expand our comfort zone. So we're doing this, but we're still comfortable doing it. And so that may encourage us to keep doing it. So I've never heard it put that way before, Mal, but I really like that.
Tremendous perspective. I was going to have a very similar comment. I love that idea of comfort zone and really building capacity and ability. Mr. Cortez, lesson learned.
I do want to touch up on like the ed tech, as they mentioned, and I do believe it's changed education as a whole. Everything now is digital, and kids are now we're teaching in a one-to-one device world. But that's not my number one. My number one, man, and as cliche as it sounds, it's like relationships matter. And those one-to-one relationships with those kids and just having them in your classroom, speaking, interacting, having those friends, man, like relationships is everything, honestly, whether it's with teachers, with friends, with admin, whoever it might be. A couple of things that I've noticed post-pandemic is initially when we got back into the classroom, was kids not speaking. And that's because they were so used to having those Zoom classroom environments where everything's just muted and they don't have to participate. And so kids were quiet. It was odd getting them to speak when they came back. And then the next thing was like the environment. I used to have kids that would like turn off their camera and lie and just say like that they're having internet issues. And there's no way I could prove it. But I knew darn well, like the kids would be playing Xbox or the kids. And so no, they weren't playing that. Yeah, they had the Xbox right next to them. They weren't just putting me on mute. But man, like and I'm a big ed tech enthusiast. I hadn't mentioned this, but I teach robotics, and so like I'm huge on all of that. But the number one thing on my list, like honestly, and again, as cliche as it sounds, is just like those relationships with those kids. Things are just now starting to feel like normal, like pre-pandemic. And last year was the first full year that we had the kids back in the classroom. And you could just see the difference, man. Like, I don't know. But yeah, it's they had to learn how to behave again. They had to learn how to act in a classroom appropriately again. And we're seeing things in the proper trajectory again.
So that's good stuff right now as we reflect on the lessons learned, especially as we've always said, we were building the plane as it was flying without any kind of government help. Everybody else got that assistance, and that's what makes us such a great profession, the profession that creates all the other professions. And having avenues such as these podcasts are great tools for us to prepare for the 22 and 23 school year. So I'll throw that out there right now. Hey, Dean, up there in Boston, when you guys are getting ready for football season and all that, the cold weather, how are you preparing there with the home of the Bears for 22-23?
Well, the preparing is making sure that our systems are in place and ensuring that everything is a go, making sure that staff is balanced and they feel comfortable and they feel valued and appreciated, ensuring that you have groups set up that are going to support one another horizontally, vertically, and ensuring that, all pieces of the puzzle are in place. Now, listen, this is public education. Every child that walks through your door, you have the responsibility to ensure that you're giving them everything that they need. And that's a tough task. There's no doubt about that. But when we start talking about support and differentiation and helping kids make their highest gains, it's just something that we do, and we've been blessed. And I know in my building, like in Chris's, we've had a long time to cultivate staff that just see kids as kids first. And if you do that and you understand that you're in the business of serving people, that we're in the business of people, not the business of content will take care of itself in the end. So just great stuff across the board there. And that's really how I'm preparing for this. Thanks, Josh. I appreciate you throwing me right there on the spot.
I love it. Well, let's go up a little bit north. What about them Gators? What are we doing there, Gators? What are you doing in Canada right now?
What's going on in Canada? Well, we're not even in school yet, right? We take the bankers hours. We get started after Labor Day in September. So we're still waxing the floors and making sure the chairs have all the gum scraped off of them this time of year. But we're getting ready for going back in a couple of weeks, and I'm fired up about it. I'm excited. I've never been a person who says, "Oh no, it's end of August and there's a back to school sale," and have those anxiety and panic attacks. I'm always like, right on, let's go. What are we going to do? And let's get together and start going. And I think that's the right way to approach it. Don't get all anxious about it, but just get pumped up and see what happens when you get there.
So out of total curiosity, I would ask you here in Texas, in Canada, how do you guys prep as classroom facilitators for the 22-23 year? Are there meetings before the school year? Do you guys have a week of professional development like we do in the United States? How do you all prep?
Yeah, actually, no. There's actually no requirement in our contract that teachers show up before the Tuesday after Labor Day. So the school's open now. The admin team is back in the school, and they're setting up timetables and getting the administrative stuff ready. But teachers can come and go as they please, but there's no obligation to be there. The school district does run sort of an education boot camp that you can certainly attend if you want to, but there's no obligation to. So there's opportunities for teachers to do that sort of thing, but there's also opportunity to squeeze out every last hour of summer before you go back.
Got it. Thank you for sharing. How about them Titans? How are the Titans preparing for 22-23?
Yeah, and you know what? I think all the technical elements that we, typically would do, the gum scraping and the floor waxing, all that stuff is fantastic. And it's we've got a tremendous custodial team. We've got tremendous educators who come in across the summer to help us with our scheduling and set everything. But coming out of this past year, which was supposed to be kind of a recovery year from COVID, coming into this year, which is supposed to be the real recovery, right? Really focusing on building those relationships and finding ways that we can cultivate a high level of energy and a high level of enthusiasm for educators to be back together, back in the saddle, welcome their kids, build community, build structure, build that team expectation. And in essence, like, was referenced earlier, we've got to teach the kids how to engage in these activities we want them to be great at and excel at. Dean mentioned, the content will take care of itself. I agree. When we're sitting down and looking at the hiring of our last minute hires right now, I'm not looking at content experts. I'm looking at folks who are competent with content, but I'm looking at people who can relate to the middle level kid, relate to their colleagues, want to get better, and want to be a part of something great. If you can check those boxes, content comes. And, we're really looking to cultivate that idea and that ideology and mindset that people first, kids first. But we can't do things if it's only good for kids. We have to do things that are also parallel good for the educators who need to do them. We can't put additional pressure on the educators. We can't put more on their plate to say, we got to make this happen. We got to find ways to do it together and holistically. And that's a lot of the prep that we've been undertaking as a leadership team in my building, to really look at how do we support and encourage while not feel as if things are a mandate. It's going to be a fine line. But we're certainly going to be there side by side.
Thank you for sharing. Hey, Mel, talk to us about your area in South America, in Colombia. How do you guys prepare for the school year? What the campus administration? How do they guide you all as a preparation for? Do you have a week? Like I can only state that in the state of Texas, and I hear from Massachusetts also, we have like a week of preparation as teams, professional development going and so forth. What happens in Colombia?
Well, I don't think it's about what happens in Colombia necessarily, but in the school that I'm at, I went back on the 4th of August, so teachers, and we were back for 2 weeks, and then last week the kids came back on Wednesday, and let's say like the first few days we had some external PE person come in to run a couple of sessions, but otherwise we had like a bazillion meetings basically on so many different things. And of course, at the start of every year, it's always crazy, basically. It's always like that. It's the start is never like, you always feel like, oh yeah, I'm ready for this, but actually you're not ready for anything. And it's just, it's always a bit of a mess at the start, I guess. It's like, not necessarily a bad thing. Sometimes it can be, but it's like I've been back for a week with the students, and they're like, oh, but this isn't ready and that's not ready and whatever. And we're just like, well, it's always like that. It's the start of the year. It's going to take us a couple of weeks or a month or whatever to get back into things, obviously. So just need to be able to take the time to get into that stuff and have some patience, I guess, in a way. But yeah, the prep, we had 2 weeks before the students came back, but those 2 weeks, it felt like it wasn't actually 2 weeks. It just went by super fast because we're just doing so many things. We've got a lot of things going on at our school this year. So they're prepping for, lots of stuff. But yeah, so meetings and some professional development, but not as much as it was before. Like we used to have the ed tech training and that sort of stuff. We didn't really have that this time around.
Great. Thank you for sharing. That's something that I can only speak for myself. I'm very ignorant to what happens around in different parts of the world, and let alone in other states. And that's why, some of these questions, people might be in the same, even after 31 years walking in this field, you still learn a bunch of stuff. You think that you know stuff, but then when you hear Canada, you hear South America, you hear Massachusetts, even a neighboring district down the line, Pleasantville, then, it's one of those things to where you're like, wow, I wonder how that would work with us. And what about you up there in the corner? That young man over there in that video game chair that he's sitting in, that he probably spends like 30 hours on playing. Omar, how do you prepare for 22-23?
So I bought this video game chair to play video games, but I use it for most of my planning. But honestly, same boat as apparently Boston and yourself. We do have that week of PD. It's just, I'm interested. I'm curious now how I would function, or how a lot of us teachers who would think to ourselves, if we were up north, like in Canada, where you don't have to contractually be there until that first Tuesday. I'm curious, Tim, do teachers show up sometimes not until that first day? Like, do they not go prepare their class? Are there teachers that do that? And if so, what does that bare bones classroom look like?
Well, yeah, I mean, teachers are all kind of doing it their own way. There's a lot of them taking care of that business in June before they leave. And then they're,
Okay.
so they'll come back to a classroom that's, ready to roll and whatever they're needing to prep. But, or they'll be in this week or next week. Like I said, the school's open, the admin team is there. It all depends on the individual. So one way or the other, they take care of things. And plus, it's a pretty soft start. Our first day, that Tuesday, the only people in the school are your first year students, your grade 8 kids come in. So there's not really any teaching that first day anyway. So some teachers will go straight to business as soon as they hit their classroom on that Tuesday and start getting things ready. Everyone sort of takes care of it their own way.
I just had to ask, I'm sorry, but because for us, or for me anyway, that as much as I don't appreciate in the moment coming in a week before to sometimes meetings that I do not feel are very beneficial, particularly to myself. For example, sometimes they can be like content related or content specific, and I'm in a PBL course, so things can become a little bit different. But a couple of things that do come from it is, one, my sleep schedule starts becoming normal again. I can start waking up and I'm getting used to getting to work on time. And then two, we do get some time to prepare the classroom, which I do end up appreciating. My wife, not so much, because she'll come over and help me out the whole day. And then, just then we start doing like the lesson planning and we do get that time to do lesson planning, but like most people do it by grade level contents or even like by the same type of curricular. But being in electives, we have art, robotics, music, band. So collaborating hasn't necessarily been of essence, but something that I am trying to partake in more this year, and I'm preparing for more, is trying to figure out those cross-curricular connections. I know I've been back in campus for 1 week, and that was one goal that I set for myself. So one way I'm preparing is I have been taking like PDs and just looking at different activities. The first week of school, my intro to robotics class designed paint rollers and got to like paint, for their activities in class. My advanced robotics class was working with scaling, and we're just applying those math concepts. So that's one way that I'm definitely preparing is just talking to my content teachers and figuring out where I can support them and how I can incorporate that into my lesson. Another big thing for preparation is going back to like that fact that I'm a PBL course, is that I do a lot of the design cycle in my classroom. We think about it, we prototype, we test it. Did it work? Yes. Okay, we're done with this specific part. No, then we begin prototyping. And within that design cycle, something that comes to me is like just the empathy from the kids and listening to them in an environment. And like just again, earlier I mentioned that I was relating to my kids and the fact that we're like a Title I 99% Hispanic school. Well, as Mr. Tovar can attest, he was my AP, by the way. That's where I'm coming from, and that's completely me. So like one thing that I do when I'm preparing for my classrooms is like I try to think of what the kids like, and I figure out how to do that. So like my kids love soccer. Like soccer is everything on our campus. Well, I have 2 units on robot soccer. Another thing like that I do is like for programming, I try to teach the kids autonomous programming and robots, because I can relate to them. I make the kids do like the caballo dorado, which is like the electric slide for Mexican culture, and I make the kids first be programming to like that line dance and trying to learn about repeat loops and things like that. So I'd say like the biggest things for preparation for myself right now in this year is definitely that cross curricular alongside with that empathy with my students.
You said a lot right there, and I love that. And my mind was I was listening. I've been an administrator now for 20 years, and I look at educators in a way that the really good educators are on their game all the time. They're not taking time off. They are always looking to improve their craft, no matter what it is. I do know that you have to shut down. I do know that you have to turn it off when you have to turn it off, and how important that is. But if you really are that type of teacher that creates that atmosphere or that environment, you are just rocking it and you are ready to go. That collaborative practice, and Mel, I'm going back to what you said. It's a little messy. It's always a little messy. Okay. The puzzle doesn't just complete itself on day one. You're talking about a 180-day journey. And through that journey, what happens? Those puzzle pieces come together. You see those kids start to gain momentum and belief in themselves. And that's what true learning is all about. And that teacher who acts as that facilitator to get them to think deeply and process and rethink and redo things, they're the teachers that are worth their weight in gold. They just are. You know, you don't have to be that person just orating in front of the class and say, regurgitate after me. No, man, this is what I want you to do. I want you to think about this and make this real. Hey, we've got some great comments here. And before I ask a question, check this one out. This is one from Shannon. And she just said, listen, I think a lot of frustration from educators was we expected the students to interact like they used to do. This is what we talk about coming back from COVID. But they have to reteach the skills. I think everyone on this call could probably talk to that because she's absolutely correct when she says that. Anybody want to just chime in and just give her an answer to that?
Yeah, it's true. You spend I don't even know, I can't even remember now how many months or weeks or year or whatever it was that we were trying to do things remotely. But you get back together and you notice things that are a little bit different in the behavior of the students, and you kind of wonder, is it the kids this year? But then you realize, well, wait a minute, no, it's not just the kids this year. It's these kids have come off of such a bizarre scenario. They are readjusting. And honestly, that really took a lot of pressure off of, I feel like, my shoulders, likely others as well, in that it wasn't that I was dealing with a bunch of, haywire students. They were thrown into a haywire situation, and they're emerging from the cave, and it's like, yep, I totally get it now. I can totally understand, and it will change how I'll respond to the things that I see. And we ease back into it gently. Like, it takes a while for the bears to come out of the den at the end of a long winter. So sort of the same thing with the kids.
I like that analogy. Hey, how about leadership in your district? What do you look for? What are you looking for from the leader in your district? And I love what Shannon Moore said right here. It's okay that administrators express that it's okay to be messy. She's absolutely correct. We don't want anybody looking over their shoulder. We want you teaching. We want you having fun. We want to be able to build you up. I want risks to be taken in my classrooms in my school. And I want to be able to say to that teacher, if it didn't work, guess what? Let's come back and rebuild it. And let's go in a different direction, because without risk, you don't have growth. So how about that from a leadership role, from your perspective? Why don't we start with Mel? What are you looking for in a leader in your district? Keep it simple. They're all watching you right now. You don't want to say something to get you in trouble.
They're not going to be watching me. But
I want to tag them.
I want to say hi to Shannon because she's a really good friend of mine, and she's really shared some amazing things this evening. My other friend Bonnie is also here. Global connections through the pandemic. I think, like what you mentioned, leaders, my ideal leader, I guess someone that's open and really, like what Shannon mentioned, that they're actually expressing the fact that, hey, it actually is okay if things aren't going perfect right now. Acknowledging the fact that, obviously last year was crazy coming back, and then this year should be a little bit less crazy, but it's still, as you mentioned, it's still messy. Messy is the word that I'm just going to use the word messy right now. But yeah, if the leader is someone that is open to that and you feel like you can communicate with them, you don't need to worry about them looking down on you, even though you're not really on an equal footing in that sort of sense. But it's just that open communication, clear communication, like not sweeping things under the rug and trying to let people know about things a little bit in advance instead of last minute things all the time.
That's fair. Those are all very important points. Leadership 101. Omar.
Well, sometimes it's easier to list all the things that you don't appreciate, but I will say things that I really do. And shout outs to my last principal. She just got hired as an executive director in our district, and she was just incredible. And just to put it in short, she was principal of the year, the year I got there. And then we are the #1 middle school in our district, and we are just like, we were top rated on top of everything. Coming from like this, again, we're in Pleasant Grove, which is like it's not the safest of areas, so to speak, and we're out there, right? And they started this school as a project for equity and not knowing if we were going to succeed or not, and finding these kids from the neighborhood and putting them in there. And she just built this whole school thing, and golly, she was just amazing. Again, Miss Ramirez, if you're out there listening, man, like you are just amazing. And I can tell you the things that I did love and trust about and have from her. And it was the fact that she trusted me. It was the fact that she believed in me. And like, when I got there, I was hired on to teach technology applications and career investigations. And I took that leap all because of robotics. All I wanted to, like, so when I first got into this district, all I wanted to do was coach robotics. I came in as a second grade math teacher, and I was coaching a fifth grade team in robotics. And then, in there's two sections, I guess. There'd be like an intermediate and an advanced. And in the intermediate portion of it, it's like the plastic robots. So then I got certified in computer science because I wanted to go into middle school so I can do the advanced component, which was like the metal robots, right? And so I was going to take whatever job that really came my way. And it just happened to be the tech apps and CTE. And when I got there, she saw that I was showing up to work early to practice with the kids, and then I was leaving late because I was practicing with the kids. And within that, I sold her on this thing that I just want to teach robotics. I was just like, I love this. Like, I can do this all day. And she's like, well, why don't we bring this upon our campus? And it started off as one semester in that first year in 3 sections. By the time she left, now I'm teaching 4 different sections. I have intro to robotics, advanced robotics 2, and advanced robotics 3. And I have like this ecosystem in my classroom. So by the time you make it to advanced robotics 3, now we're competitive. And I have what it started off as one team. I'm now serving an entire classroom of competitive robotics plus an after school program. And this was all because she believed in me when I was telling her like what I loved. And she took that risk, and she found someone else to teach that career investigations because they still needed that credit component. But she knew that we had something going on here, and she just let me roll with it. And here we are, man. And I think I've never appreciated someone more for that, because she would listen to me, she would appreciate it, and she took that risk on me. And man, that's something I'll never forget.
Chris?
Yeah, Dean, as I sit down and think about what I'm looking for most in leaders is that open communication, that honest belief that sometimes thinking outside the box is the right way to go. Not just following the script, not requiring that procedures necessarily be followed, but that the end goal be achieved. And, sometimes that means, hey, we got to do things a different way. We got to break the mold. We got to shift. We got to shape, and ultimately make ourselves better, make the organization greater. For me, there's no other way to actually get there.
Josh?
2 things. Number 1, make sure that you role model the expectation of connecting with kids. It's crucial that it comes from the chair. From that point on, it will bleed throughout the body, making sure that everyone does that ultimate point of making sure the kids feel appreciated at the campus. And number 2, if you are truly a instructional leader, that you don't say go teach it, but role model it when you lead the professional development. You can't leave it to the AP or to your team leads. If you are the instructional leader of the campus, you should be able to walk into your content area and teach what you expect people to do. And that doesn't mean sitting behind your chair, because once people see that you are able to teach bell to bell, that you're able to connect with kids in the classroom, that you're able to use all your time effectively, then everyone's going to say, you know what? I believe in what that person is bringing to the table, because you know what? They are truly an instructional leader. They care about kids because I see them in the hallway, in the cafeteria, before school and after school, connecting with them. And that right there brings the whole body rolling together like a beautiful robot.
Well said. Hey, Omar, I think Chris is going to hire you on the spot right now for Project Lead the Way. I'm just going to say that. I think it's going to come out of his mouth. I don't know. I'm just guessing. I can know the thought bubble.
Yeah. Was it that obvious, Dean? I was doing a little bit of research on Omar.
You couldn't afford to fly him in.
No, I have ways. So we sit down, we talk about, professional development, we talk about improvement, we talk about betterment, and this is a platform where we pride ourselves on kind of an on-demand PD, right? The conversation that we're having, we're learning, we're continually getting better. Let's talk podcasts, and or video casts, since we are, a streaming platform. How have podcasts enhanced your ability to make connections or rethink some traditions in education that you may not have been able to rethink or address? Let's start with Omar. Podcasts, video casts. What do you think? How do you get more exposure?
I think, I don't know. So this isn't the first education podcast I've come across. Like on TikTok, I've also found teacher talk, so to speak, and I've seen a couple others. And I guess the one thing that I do feel from all of this is that like we're all in this together. Like seriously, man, people from all over the world are experiencing the same problems, same issues, the same stress. And I really feel like just kind of knowing that it's going to be this. It's similar everywhere, and we're all fighting the good fight together, and knowing that what we're all doing, from our hearts, like we're doing it together, and there's plenty of us out there like that. And I guess sometimes when we get, whether it's frustrated or whatever, that there's others that are feeling and wondering what we're feeling and wondering, and some when you hear others talk it out, you'll come across things that maybe you didn't analyze things that way, or you didn't think of it that way. And so I really think having a podcast where teachers can share their voice will really help with that.
Love it. Thank you very much, Omar. I appreciate the perspective. Mel.
I want to push it because it made me feel like how we might have connected. I mean, it's through one of these platforms, right? Either like maybe Twitter or YouTube Live. I'm not. Tim?
I'm not sure exactly what you're referring to, but you and I connected on Twitter, but my podcast is Science 360, and I hear what Omar's saying in regard to teachers having a voice and podcasting around the world, and we're all in this together and experiencing similar things, and this is all very true. But I personally have steered a little clear of those podcasts because what I'm mostly interested in is picking up new content. My biggest platform when it comes to education is that it's stagnant, and we're even teaching. If you have a textbook that was written in 2015, it may seem recent, but that's 7 years ago, and certain subject areas that's just not good enough. So I'm always looking for new content, and so I'm listening to podcasts all the time. But I've found good podcasts that teach content specifically for teachers. That, hey, here's something that I could teach you, or as a teacher, you could learn, and then you could take it into your classroom. And so that's how I've styled my podcast. I'm not teaching, or I'm sorry, on mine, I'm not talking about teaching. I'm talking about what you can teach. And so I bring guests on that know something specifically about a content area that I think students would find interesting. If the teachers knew about it, they'd probably teach it. And that's sort of my approach to the whole podcast world. In Canada, we've got really the premier one is going to be the Staff Room podcast with Che and Pav, and they've kind of taken the podcast world by storm here in Canada, and they're the ones giving voice to teachers all across the country, and they're doing a fantastic job of it. So I leave that kind of podcast up to them, and I'll do my style where I'm going to bring content that maybe you could use in your classroom. Yep.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Tim. As we sit down and we think about, the concept of videocast and podcasts, we've got the element of social media. So I just want to drop it right down below me to Josh to kind of round out the thoughts there, on social media use. You do a little bit, with your Canva experience and your Twitter blowups and, your school promotions. How do you leverage that? And then it might be time to take us home.
So in a nutshell for us, did we get Omar's point of view right now real quick?
Mm-hmm.
Did you get him? Okay.
Yeah.
In my point of view, is just we need to carry the narrative of our home because of the negativity that's tied to social media. All you need is one bad post in regards to all the dedication and hard work that your students do. And you know what? I'll be darned if I'm going to let someone else speak ill of our home, because we're all human. We all make mistakes. We all commit errors. But you know what? That does not make or compose a school of 900 kids, of 2,500 kids, or of 300 kids. And you know what? The whole point is that everybody within that house shows the beauty that's going on within that campus. Because you know what? We're entrusted with the beauty, with the future of a family. They're kids. And when they come to our home, they need to feel comfortable and accepted. And when they're in our home, we need to show the beauty and the magnanimous teamwork that's going on within the body that is the campus. And as someone that sits in my chair, it's crucial that we promote that, because you know what? Irregardless of the things that are going on out there, and there's a lot of noise, doesn't matter where, there's always noise. It's how we subdue that noise to show the beauty and the dedication of our team members, the hard work and ever growing development of our students, and the support and love of our community members, which are our parents. And us sitting in our chairs, not only in our chairs as administrators, but also as educators, that we promote the hard work and dedication that we do, grading papers on Sunday at 7 o'clock at night, creating lesson plans on Friday before the Friday night football game, all those things coming together. And it's about us showing the beauty of our dedication and hard work that happens in our daily lives. And so that is my story, and I'm going to stick to that.
Well, and I like your story too, because I see what you put on social media. I see little video clips you put up of your staff meetings. And I think to myself, oh my gosh, Josh, you need to come and give some Pro D where I work. Like seriously, you answer the question of what do we look for in an administrator is do what Josh Tovar does. And I think it's genuine that you do promote, and you do love your staff, and you do love the students, and you probably are in the hallways all the time, and I bet you every kid in the hallway gets a high five from you on a regular basis. Like I think that's what we need in admin is that I'm out there and I'm in the middle of it all, and I'm not sitting in my office. I'm doing my best impersonation of Josh Tovar. And that's what I see off of your social media.
Model.
Thank you. And you know what? I would be remiss if I don't plug here. This young lady right here, she has a couple of YouTube episodes promoting that positivity. Check her out. Mel, can you give us the title of that so people can research all the educators that you've had for 3 weekends in a row, showing how to highlight and accentuate the positive that goes on in the classroom and within the body of the campus?
Yeah, so I've been facilitating a series called Celebrating Creativity. So I've asked people to come on to share if they have any ideas of how they like to celebrate the creativity of others. So whether it's in the classroom or out of the classroom, whether it's for students or for their friends or for whoever, and each person has brought a really different perspective. But they have the common thing. They're really just sharing, celebrating others. And I think some people, they don't know how to do that or very good at accepting. So I think it's given a lot of people like different ideas. And Josh was a guest last week. And of course, you know Josh, okay? So all about the social media, but everyone has different apps or or whatever. But it's just, bringing that positivity and sharing it with others, because a lot of people don't know what others are doing because they're still, unfortunately, in their silos. But it's about breaking those and then having better communication across everywhere. So, but yeah, it's been really good. I'm really enjoying what people have been sharing so far.
Breaking down barriers, removing people from silos. What a concept. I think we're evolving, folks. Well, not a bad thing at all. Hey, Josh, take us home, man. 40 minutes of pleasure here.
But you know what, everybody? We have right now, we've got Canada, we've got North America, we got South America, and you know what? It doesn't matter what. We scored another touchdown in the red zone today as we start Friday Night Lights in Texas today. First football game, and football is in session. Not football, but football. And I'm pretty sure football is pretty good in Colombia and Canada. But you know what? Thank you to our guests that have accepted and shared their wisdom with all of us. And don't forget to join us this Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time with our return guest, Darren Peppard. He's going to give us some more dropping this Sunday, 7 p.m. So be there or be square, because you know what? This is free PD. No excuses. Join us either now on the rebroadcast. See you on Sunday.
Great stuff, guys. Have a great week. Great start to the
Thank you.
school as well.